A very, very warm welcome to everyone on the webinar and everyone who's watching the recording afterwards. So that's my first thing in terms of some housekeeping rules. This session will be recorded. Please, if you're not happy with the recording, please just drop a note in the chat or something like that. But just to make you aware, that is the case. In terms of videos and audio, all of your videos and audio have been turned off for the time being. They will be reactivated at the end of the webinar when we do the Q&A sessions. We'll be able to put it back on, but just to make sure there's no background noise or anything like that coming in. They've just been turned off for the time being. But please do feel free and welcome to comment in the comment section if you wanted to speak to us at all, or to ask any questions throughout, or even I might do a bit of a interaction with the audience during my presentation a little bit on. Would we be able to put in the presentation in presenter mode very quickly, if that's okay? Just the purpose of today, just wanted to go through just to showcase the amazing new early years content that we've developed in collaboration with our esteemed partners from the Early Years Alliance. So for those who don't know us in Metaverse Learning, we're experts in creating immersive content, and our unique selling point is that we work hand in hand with industry to produce some fantastic content. And so for the Early Years 2 project, who better to work with than the Early Years Alliance? So they're kindred spirits looking at the forefront of new technology to provide what's best learning and better outcomes for their members all across the sector. So in terms of speakers today, there's myself, I'm the Client Solutions Director from Metaverse Learning. There's Michael, the Director of Quality Improvement from the Early Years Alliance. And then there's Richard, who's Lecturer and Early Years Development Manager. So if we go on to the next slide, please. First of all, I'd like to introduce you, before that, just the agenda. We've already done the welcome and introductions, so that's done and dusted. First part is all over. Next of all, Michael will be having a bit of a chat about the partnership between the Early Years Alliance and ourselves. Richard will be opening up the curtains and delving into how the sausage is made in terms of the creation process for some of our new developments. And then I'll be doing a demo with my able students, Michael and Richard, providing some feedback to me and having a bit of banter and doing so. And then we'll open it up all to the end for a bit of a Q&A session. So without further ado, just want to hand over to Michael.
Thank you, James. I'm delighted to be invited to join today's session. For those of you who don't know the Early Years Alliance, we're the largest and most representative early years organisation in England. We represent the interests and support about 14,000 individual nurseries, preschools and childminders across the country. We also run 39 nurseries of our own, mostly in areas of disadvantage. So I'm delighted that Metaverse approached us as sector experts to help with the collaboration with their programs. I've been involved in the Alliance's partnership with Metaverse since its inception. And I just thought I'd spend a couple of minutes talking through some reflections on that partnership, but also the development and the journey that we have gone through. If we could have the next slide, please, Sarah. For those people who are on this session, there's probably not much to say in terms of the benefits of online learning that you don't already know. It's very accessible. It is flexible as to when and where learners engage with it. I have to be honest and say it is cheap relative to traditional classroom-based delivery. And from the early years perspective, there are increasingly fewer alternative options. The glory days of 10, 15 years ago, when we could have backfill for staff to leave their settings and to go to study days for our learners to get their qualifications and their professional development training, are long gone. We are working on much tighter shoestrings now. And so for us, there is an element that online is necessarily the way to go. Thank you, Sarah. And I think I have to start from the beginning in terms of I was deeply skeptical about online learning. I'm a further education lecturer by background. I originally taught law and politics, and my approach to adult education has always been informed by Kolb and Bandura and Freire, that adult learning is best as a shared collective experience, and that the learning group is its own resource. And that's particularly valuable for early years managers and educators coming together to share their personal experiences, their lived experiences. That's a huge resource for the classroom. And if anything, my concern is always that online learning can be considered as isolating if it's just an individual in front of their computer. If I'm honest, historically, the content that has been created has not been particularly inspiring. The delivery model, far too often, and with the assessment, we just took classroom-based paper learning and put it onto screens, which wasn't particularly inventive or creative. Also, with particular reference to our sector, I doubted whether online learning would be embraced by the early years workforce. It's not necessarily the most IT savvy or at the cutting edge and in the vanguard of this development. We do a lot of provision in community-based venues, church halls, village halls, etc. So there was often problems with mobility of kit, connectivity challenges, and the demography of the workforce. They're not desk people. They go into the profession because they want to be with children, with other adults. So I thought that the headwinds would be quite considerable. But I have to say, on pretty much all of those elements, I've been proven wrong with our partnership with Metaverse. Sarah, please. First of all, in terms of the product, and I won't say much here because Richard is with us and you'll see more of this with the demonstration from James. It's a very creative learning environment with the immersive simulations, and you'll see that in the presentation. The graphics are not hardware heavy, so it's not hugely draining on the kit requirements that is needed by the individuals to benefit from these programs. The process does facilitate a shared experience, both in terms of in the environment itself, but also when people leave the environment and have their conversations with their staff teams and with other people who've benefited from the program. And also, we particularly used it to develop scenarios where we don't want individuals learning in the real world situation. So they are safe spaces. So, for example, it's when you'll see information about one of the scenarios being the first visit to the nursery, where you want to create a good impression, and there are lots of regulatory requirements and sort of sensitivity requirements you want to get right. It's better to practice those in the safe space of the immersive environment rather than in the real world. Also, topics around daily risk assessment, home visits, and signs of neglect. Again, all areas where you want people trained, but you don't necessarily want them to learn it in real life before they engage with it. Next slide, please. And also, why Metaverse? It's been a very strong partnership because, as James has said, they bring the technical expertise and they recognize that we are the expert. It's been a true open partnership and one that has developed through co-production. They also share our ambitious vision for the potential reach of this work, and particularly we're keen to collaborate on trying to make Ofqual and other regulators recognize online observation as formal assessment of competence. That would be a particular holy grail from our point of view. I think that would be a real step change in this environment. And just a word in terms of the next steps in the partnership. Richard will speak more about more creative content that is coming, but also we've had a lot of interest internationally around how these environments can be recreated by both Alliance members in different countries around the world, but also in different languages. And again, having an effective technical partner in the shape of Metaverse makes that feasible. So we are really excited about what the future may hold for this development work. Thank you. I think that's me done, Sarah. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everybody. Equally delighted to be able to be a part of this session and talk a little bit more about the creative process and some exciting new developments, sort of following on nicely, really, from Michael talking about the background and the inception and how we are working together. If we can move on to the next slide, please, Sarah, thank you. And we're just thinking about everything starting with an idea. As Michael's mentioned, it's a hugely creative process, developing this virtual reality space for early years learning and thinking about what training people might need and what people want ultimately as well. It starts with the idea, and a few factors come into that, such as what are the professional development needs, what are those CPD needs of the early years sector, what training needs do we find out about, what training needs might we identify, and also what is the qualification criteria telling us. So what learning is the new talent experiencing out there in the training and qualifications field, and how can we align our scenarios with all of that? As Michael has mentioned, we have a huge ambitious vision with everything that we do, but running right through all of our creative thinking. And we always circle back to thoughts on how can this idea we start with, how can this idea work on screen in the virtual training space? And as Michael's identified earlier, we've got this huge need to be working online and remotely now because of the way the world is, and we know it's effective, we know it's cost effective, and we know we can get some training done. But how can this idea translate on screen, first of all? How can it not be quite so isolating and lonely, but also how will it fit into a scenario? How can it fit into this virtual reality world? So lots of toing and froing, I guess, in terms of the idea and will it work? What's it linked to? What training needs have people got? What does the sector need? What do they want? What's the qualification criteria telling us? And how will all this fit together? So lots of that creative thinking is happening at the inception of the idea. Once we have the idea, we're sure about it, we've spoken to colleagues and thought, I think this could work, what do you think? The journey and the mapping out begins really. So who will feature in the scenario and the scenes? And that's an exciting thing to consider in terms of characters almost. Where will the situations, the scenes, the incidents, the training scenario take place? How many children? What ages do they need to be? What are we trying to communicate here? And what will it look like visually as well? As with any teaching and learning, curriculum and pedagogy do come into this. So what do we want colleagues to learn from this exercise, and how are we going to help them to learn it? How do we plan to get them there, get them to achieve what we want them to learn? So once all of that is sketched through, a somewhat of a storyboard develops with a natural starting point, a middle and an end point. The scenario specification is then pulled together, which we work on with the colleagues, the sort of virtual reality developers in a sense. So we give the narrative then an aim. We're thinking, what do we want to achieve all of the time, that ambitious vision, some measurable objectives. So we're thinking real learning content, a learning experience and some teaching and learning outcomes. So some measurable objectives and then an overview. So what is this scenario all about? We have to title it up as well. And that gives us a kind of a blurb to market it, to push it out there so people can see it, but it all has to tie together, and that comes together on the scenario specification, which we work on with within the partnership. This is when the ongoing dialogue between the Alliance and the virtual reality developers really does begin. Lots of fine-tuning happens, lines of communication between partners is absolutely essential so the scenario can be created in the metaverse world. And sometimes we're having to stop, pause, rethink, okay, let's change track and do something different. That isn't quite working how any of us envisaged or anything like that. If we move on, Sarah, thank you. The exciting bit really is the first look, and it's thinking about the characters that we've written into the story are going to be seen for the first time. So are the characters that we've got right for the scenario? Would this be true to life? Is it realistic? Is it authentic enough? And as always at the Alliance, our inclusive principles, our core beliefs and values, which we stand by, inform the development of these scenarios, just like any other piece of training material we work on and put out there. We create characters who are diverse, as we want to represent real societies and real community. People and families who are ethnically diverse, a cross-section of different ages, and will include children, families, educators, who are living with a disability or have some learning needs. The environment we have carefully thought out is also seen for the first time in action, in a sense, at the very first kind of demonstration we get when everything's being put together in the metaverse. The activities, the resources, the display boards, the furniture, the whole look and feel of the space, everything from the telephone on the wall, the waiting area in reception, has been designed with some authenticity in mind. The idea is that this is that truly immersive learning experience. We want to feel as we are, truly part of this setting, this educational place. When writing the scenarios and the scenes, we develop lots of key learning points that pop up throughout the completion of the scenario to give the user a much more comprehensive learning experience. These points are in a handout form often and will mean some further reading to help consolidate a learning point or bring together ideas of something that has just been worked through or viewed on the scenario. Part of the first look is about looking at these learning points and checking on the assessment side of things. Do the questions in the multiple choice question and answer section, do they look right? Do they feature in the right place? Have we got the right flow? Have we got enough learning that has taken place so we can ask questions? And sometimes looking at the scenario when it's being put together in draft means we might change the order slightly in terms of we need to have more content before we can start to then assess people. So can we push the Q&A further down the track? And this is that ongoing dialogue in terms of the first look, second look, preview. Are we going to sign off on it? Let's share with colleagues. Let's get some sign off. And this consensus that this is ready to go. So lots happens in that creative process, but also in that brilliant first look and the subsequent looks that happen thereafter really as well. If we can move on, thank you. Looking at what's coming soon and what we have right now as well. So we have 3 true early years scenarios that are live, ready to go, that are out there available, free for Alliance members, but available for others. The current scenarios are getting to know you. And as Michael mentioned in the front end of this is that settling in visit, the first look at the nursery, that real emotional time when the family is taking their child to the setting, the nursery for the first time. The settling in visits happen, the partnership work between the family and the educators and the manager begins to happen in terms of getting to know this child. What does the nursery need to know so they can settle the child and they can support their learning in the best possible way and meet their needs? That's that scenario. The learning walk is the next one. And that's a look at the Ofsted walkthrough. So very much linked into curriculum, some of the aims and rationale of the early years foundation stage, the statutory framework, aspects of that are within the learning walk section, because as we know, the Ofsted inspection is about meeting the requirements and standards of the statutory framework, and checking the knowledge and confidence of the educator team and the leaders that the quality of education is sound. There's sound leadership and management, and everything happens in between. This gives the learner, the user, some real insight into curriculum intent. What do I want children to learn, and how might teaching happen? And it can be a little bit of a preparation for Ofsted inspection. So leadership might be quite interested in engaging in the learning walk scenario, but anybody within the education setting would benefit from this one as well. In the pre-session risk assessment, this is an interesting one, because it's almost like, if you think about the way we are all tested, and some of us will remember when the theory driving test came in and we're spotting hazards, and when that came in, that was big news. This pre-session risk assessment is fun because it's almost like that, in a sense of you're in the environment, you're in the space, the inside, the outside, and you're looking for potential hazards. This is brilliant for fine-tuning those dynamic risk assessment skills that we all have as educators working in education, creating a safe space to welcome families and learners into our session, into our lesson. But again, this is just something to fine tune that, and works really, really well. What's the hazard? What could happen? What might we do if? And it will encourage that almost roundtable discussion, which always makes a great risk assessment. So another good one there. What we have is three more exciting scenarios that are currently with the virtual reality developers. So these have been developed by us at the Alliance, and these have been sent for development and signed off by us in terms of content. So what will be happening with these three next will be that first look, and that ongoing dialogue will begin. The storyboards are done. We've got supporting children's smooth transitions, which is looking at educators supporting children to move through the different rooms of the nursery. So it's a little bit about those bigger, those horizontal transitions, new children starting, so leads on beautifully from getting to know you, but also takes into consideration those vertical transitions, those softer ones, those smaller changes within the day-to-day and moving rooms between the nursery. Speech, language and communication development is the next one. This is an area of huge concern across the education sector and early years in particular. So we absolutely wanted to think about a scenario that is looking at this area of development. And we know it comes up on inspection, we know it comes up in national figures, the word gap and everything that comes with that. So the speech, language and communication one is key for a new way of learning how to think about supporting children's early language development and communication skills. We then come to some compliance in terms of confidentiality and information sharing. This one is, what is confidentiality? When can we perhaps break confidentiality in a safeguarding situation? What is a personal information? What's sensitive information? What is on display in the nursery? Are we giving too much information away? Looks a little bit at the GDPR regulations without being too heavy. This is a very user-friendly scenario still, even though it's based on something that's quite dry in terms of information sharing. It's interesting, it's asking reflective questions. The assessment in here is designed to make the user, the learner, think about actually, would I share that? Can I share that? How? And what legislation is in place to prevent me from doing that? What do I need to know? Okay, we can move on. Last slide from me in terms of the last bit of what's coming next, really. So these are in development, and this development for these is still sat with us at the Alliance in terms of we are writing these at the moment. We've got a hygiene and infection control one on its way, which is really key off the back of COVID and all of that. But actually, we do have some legal requirements to think about infection control and thinking about the health of children as part of that statutory requirement as well. So that one's on the way. Emergency planning is in the talking through stages. Baby room practice and care needs was one we centred on because many settings we noticed are not meeting that requirement of a certain proportion of their early years teams not having had baby room training, and that's a percentage of colleagues in the setting must have had specific baby room training. So this course is CPD to go along with that requirement. The next one that I'm working on is the home learning environment, and family engagement, thinking about how best to establish and develop further the home links, the relationship with the family, with the main carers, the benefits of the home learning environment in a child's holistic development as well, in terms of how to engage the family in the life of the setting and get them switched on to their children's early learning. So all of that's coming together. And lastly, we've got supporting multilingual children and families to directly reflect the diverse world that we're living in and such a rich and diverse early years sector as well. So that one is also on the way. That's everything from me for the moment. So any questions, please send them in.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think you've whetted everyone's appetite there, not only for my presentation showing some of the live scenarios, but some of the new content that's coming next. There's a few questions in the chat box. I think one might be more for you to answer, first of all, Richard. Are there different scenarios that are appropriate for different levels of staff?
I'm just seeing these now. Thank you, James. Yeah, so these scenarios are pitched very sort of middle of the road, but not for that to sound too broad and waffy and meaningless. These are pitched so leaders can refresh their CPD with these scenarios, but also they are written with new colleagues, new talent in mind, and also people like any of us who want to refresh. So absolutely, people working at any level can engage in this and benefit, because it's CPD for people who want to refresh, and it's part of the ongoing learning journey for those who are engaging in qualifications. So it will meet the needs of the whole staff team, I would say.
Michael, you've got something to add to what Richard said?
Yeah, I would like to add, because we had these conversations as during the planning stage, and I think we've all known that actually levels of staff in terms of qualification levels is a grey area. All too often, staff are being invited to take on roles and functions which actually probably is higher than would normally be within their pay grade. So we've focused it more on what are the actions that people need to do. From the three that are available now, the getting to know you, the learning walk, and the risk assessments, they are roles which one would expect are taken on by more senior members within a nursery or a preschool. So you could say that the expectation would be that they are mapped to level 3. We map them across to the qualifications, but we focus more on these are the functions that senior people will be doing. Whereas the next set, as Richard has identified, they are more generic in terms of the entire workforce requiring them. But that's not to say it won't be the entire workforce who need and can benefit from the getting to know you work and the risk assessments and the learning walk, because if it's not what they're doing now, it's what they will be doing as their careers progress.
Cool, perfect. And Leanne's asked, are these scenarios available now? So there's the 3 new ones are available now in both virtual environment, virtual reality, and we can even port them to immersive rooms. There's 3 available before this as well from the original consortia project. And there's also some new safeguarding e-learning content, which is also available. Richard alluded to some other content which is not yet available, which is going to be hopefully available in the not too distant future. I'm particularly excited about the baby room scenario. A lot of our or baby room content, a lot of our customers are always saying it will be very useful to have some kind of a nappy changing scenario or something like that.
It's a big learning need, actually, in terms of that, James. So it's something that, as mentioned, we're centered on, because that does indicate lines of questioning that we get in terms of, do you do anything for young children? And we've been getting requests around that more and more. So it absolutely made sense to create a scenario on this, really.
And particularly with the expansion of the rollout of entitlement that's happening now, and also from next September, it's a huge area of capacity and skills development for the workforce. So it was an important one to develop, but quite challenging.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of anything around the kind of the health and safety aspect of that, the baby room scenario would be phenomenal. It broke my heart the other month when I saw that poor thing about the infant being tied to the beanbag or something like that. And so anything that can help save lives, I think would be absolutely phenomenal in that kind of regard.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit teary now. So, and just to go back to assessment and your point, Michael, we're kindred spirits in terms of summative assessment as well, in terms of that going forwards. And I know, we really want to work with Ofqual as well to make sure that some of the content can be used in summative assessment the way forwards. I think something like this potentially better than paper-based assessments to gauge staff members' capability, essentially. All for that. And just I'm going to be sharing my screen now, but before that, I just wanted to reflect on some of my own experience, because at one point I used to be a primary school teacher, or training to be a primary school teacher, and I was absolutely no good at it. I was very good at the stuff in terms of or the PGCE written work, but when I actually went into the school, I wasn't actually particularly good at any of the actual kind of practical stuff. And so I wish I had some more of this kind of stuff when I was doing my teaching degree, because I think I would have done a lot better job doing it. Anyway, right, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Ace. So I'm going to start off with scenario 6 first. So this is our risk assessment and safety suite, one of the exciting. You described it, I think, as the fun one, or the fun scenario, which is the most fun one. They're all fun. This one is, that I think, the most
James,
fun.
they're all hugely fun, James. Absolutely, but this one was is good at the sort of spotting hazards bit as you get further through. So yeah.
And it identifies as well some of the ways we developed in our scenarios in terms of it's randomized. Every time a student comes on this, they'll have a different randomized set of hazards. Let's go and have a chat with our receptionist first.
Morning, Melanie. Did you have a nice holiday?
Oh, hi, Jayla. Yes, I did, thanks. How about you? Did you get to the lakes as planned?
We did. It was lovely. Lots of walking and eating, of course.
Ellie's been very kind with that
I
laugh.
forgot to ask. How did the inspection go before the holes?
It seemed to go well. We're just waiting for the draft report to come through, and then we can share the outcome with everybody. Anyway, best get on. I'm off to do the morning safety sweep before the children arrive. I'll see you later.
So to start off with, we had some chit chat with
See you at lunchtime.
one of our colleagues. The content's not just great for developing relationships and how best to speak with the children and with parents, but also with colleagues as well. And oh dear, looks like we're going to have a hazard straight away up here. So it's the same navigation and controls that a lot of students would use for computer games. So they should find the navigation skills quite easy. If they haven't done something like this before, then there are instructions at the very start of the program to help out a lot of learners. But it's all helping students digital literacy skills as well, because once you've mastered the controls to something like this, you'll be able to do a lot more content like this, and there's more and more content like this coming around. So looks like there's going to be a bit of a hazard here. Oh dear. Are the signs of wasps here, Michael? An easy one for you to start. What do you think?
I think there might be. I can hear a
Yes.
buzzing in my ear. Either that or it's interference, James. Right.
It could be wasps. Richard, what could be the potential hazards of keeping this wasp's nest here?
Well, apart from it being annoying, apart from that, you've actually got the sting, the risk of being stung, and that's for children, adults, families, anybody coming into the space. And there's actually an allergy linked to that potentially as well. So we all know it hurts being stung by a wasp. So yeah, there is the potential, the poison it goes, and there can be reactions from that. And then you've also got the complaint side of things. People don't want to send their children to any nursery education setting and know the setting isn't doing anything about leadership and not resolving the problem. So there's the PR side of it, relations with your families, but then there's the health implications of the pain and the fear, the anxiety, and then the potential reaction to that sting or bite as well.
Answer. Top marks. Yeah, I mean, like in terms of the allergic reaction, not so too much spoilers. I always remember the second series of Bridgerton in terms of that, different honey Bridgerton fans on, and it's like the profound consequences stings can have. Perfect. Okay, so it always gives feedback after I've selected an answer as well. But on a different side of this scenario, there would be no wasp's nest there, so that wouldn't be a hazard because of the randomized nature of this. Let's go check the gate. Looks pretty secure to me. Richard, what do you think? Does it look secure?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Looks all right to me. Perfect. The gate has no sign of damage or impairments. Checking the gates and doors are secured is an important element of the safety suite. Okay, perfect. Let's go check for a bit of vandalism, because I know there's been some rowdy teenagers that like to jump over the fence and do all sorts. Oh dear. Oh my goodness. Looks like we have had some vandalism here. Michael, do you think there's any sign of trespass and vandalism here?
I'd be interested to know what happens, James, if I said no on that one.
Fantastic.
I'm calling that creative artwork. What have we got?
Well, I mean, like in terms of creating discussion points, you know, there are some very kind of modern nurseries about that do like some of this modern artwork. So we don't know exactly if someone's been paid to paint this on there. So, okay, cool. Let's take a look. I mean, Richard, what if this is vandalism? What would be the consequences of, say, like students or members of the public or whatever seeing this kind of thing?
It's not a good look if it's not just creative artwork, and there might be some very urban themed artwork in the setting. So once we know it is, if we think it is actual trespass or vandalism, then there's a security risk, because if people can get in, that's less than ideal for safety. If the view spray paint, is that toxic? These are questions to ask as part of a dynamic risk assessment, I guess. Depends what the language, the letters might spell out. Children are very quick, and often the words that we don't want them to hear or see are very easy for them to say, and they can say those words. Sometimes these are the words we want them to say. So again, it's that, what can those children pick up from that, and the general safety aspect and the social stigma of the site being used as a bit of a drop-in hangout for people who can breach the security fence and get in and cause damage. And then your safety suite first thing the day after is even harder, because you're checking for things that you wouldn't normally be, for what else they're bringing into the site with them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If it's not usually, I imagine, just a bit of spray paint. I imagine that, I'd also be looking for alcohol bottles or cigarette butts and things like that were around, but or leftover vapes or something like that. Not quite right there, but shows you whether you're right or wrong. Yeah. Let's go inspect the paving slabs. Oh, looks okay to me, the paving slabs over here, or maybe not. Looks like there might be a crack. Oh dear. Okay. A paving slab is broken. What do you need to do, Richard? Report it to a manager, rope it off with signage, remove it completely, wait and see if it's really a hazard, if anyone trips over it.
Shall we wait and see? A bit of jeopardy. Shall we wait and see it on?
Bit of jeopardy. Anarchist in the we've invited onto the webinar. And Michael, what do you reckon? The second one here.
I would like to think we are going to report it to the manager and possibly rope off with signage.
Rope off with signage. And again, like, students can use it independently, or you can use it as a great facilitation for discussion, as we're doing it now. Who thinks it's one side, who thinks it's the other? And you can even go off and do project work based on this, like have maybe a what if, and then students will come up with a full list of exactly what if in this case, and then you can have a full-on debate in class. It'll be rather good. Okay, perfect. Anyway, we don't have time for me to do the whole scenario because it's very long, very thorough. So let me crack on to the next scenario. Here we go. So, learning walk, and Ofsted's coming in. The fear of dreads encompassing everyone. Okay, cool. So let's start this. So this is a great example of a very, very high pressure scenario that a student wouldn't be able to encounter every day. But with our scenarios, you can have Ofsted in daily, not hourly if you wanted to. I know, again, a lot of people's minds are filling with dread. But it sounds
wonderful, yeah.
It's a great way to make sure people are more prepared for when the eventuality does happen. Cool. Here we go. Here's Ofsted. Robert's walking in. He's looking menacing.
Hello, I'm Robert from Ofsted. I rang yesterday to inform you that I'll be carrying out your early years inspection today. Here is my ID.
Welcome to Tiny Trees. We've been expecting you.
All looks good with Robert's ID. Perfect. Always check the ID beforehand.
Thank you. Is the manager
Get students
free?
into good habits.
I want to spend some time explaining what will happen today.
I will just ring our manager to let her know you are here. Please feel free to have a look at our parent notice board whilst you are waiting.
Oh, he's having a look at our parent notice board. What you can also do is use the content for project work as well. So what I might want the students perhaps to do is use the immersive environment, take a look around. What would you perhaps edit or modify about the environment around? What would you add to make it more maybe engaging or better marketing in terms of some of the people who might come around it? Because as you all know, if you make sure you've got full seats in the house, you're more likely to thrive as a business. Let's go around and have a chat with Robert. Emily, an educator in the reception area with the inspector Robert. The learning walk will start here, and the inspector has been looking at leaflets and other information available for families on the notice board.
I have been looking at your parent notice board. Perhaps you can tell me more about how you encourage parents to support their children's learning at home as we start our learning walk.
Right, here we go. The inspector has asked how parents are encouraged to support their children's learning at home. What's your response? Michael, is it we try our best in nursery, but it's really up to the parents when they're at home? Key persons tell parents to use their mobile phone to occupy children at home. Families are not really interested in carrying out the activities we do at nursery. Parents with main carers is vital to children's learning, and we communicate advice and guidance using a variety of methods, including texts, emails, and newsletters. What do you think?
I will go with that last one because the partnership element is essential from this.
I think you're right. My little boy went to 2 nurseries, and the first nursery, barely any communication at all apart from a quick chat at the door. Second nursery, app with continuous messages, exactly what's going on. Feel a lot more safe. Okay, perfect. And also, what he's learning, what he's doing, lots of great pictures, etc., etc. Perfect. That's correct. Brilliant. And what I could even do here, I'm not going to do it just because we're short of time, is perhaps even use it as a launch pad for a role play. And so I could have Richard up as the Ofsted inspector, or I could be the Ofsted inspector and Richard could be the nursery manager. And then I'd be asking him the question. You get each student to actually fully model it for you using this as a launch pad. Perfect. So let's go read the document at reception. Let me just select 4 answers here. And safeguarding. Let's take a look at safeguarding very quickly. So we're going into the nursery room now. Oh dear. Child crying. Let's talk about settling a child.
This child is clearly upset. You tell me she is new to your setting. Can you talk to me about how you respond to children who are struggling to settle in?
So how do you respond to the inspector, Richard? We have written settling procedures which share with parents. During the initial meeting, we talked to the family about how the child is likely to separate from them. We know that children soon get over separation anxiety, so we go on with the usual routine. Once children are playing, we encourage parents and family members to leave quickly, pronto, without saying goodbye. Explain to children that big boys and girls don't cry and they need to play. I think it's the last one, isn't it, Sean?
Well, let's go with that one, and let's go with we encourage parents to do a bit of a runner and don't say my let's see what it comes back to.
See what happens. I'm not quite right, and then gives you the right answers.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, I could go on all day. I'm really enjoying myself here, but unfortunately we are short of time. So we go around the whole of the school with the Ofsted inspector, going through lots and lots of different ways. If anyone wants access to the scenarios just for a quick demo later on, just let me know. I'd be happy to sort it out for you. And finally, the last one, getting to know you. So here we go. You just bear with me a second. Here's our mum. Oh, it's our manager, actually, I believe, isn't it?
How are you?
Yeah.
Good weekend?
Hi, Lindsay. It was good, thanks. You wanted to see me?
Do you remember we've got a new girl, Skylar, whose mum is hoping she can start as soon as possible? I know we discussed this briefly last week, but I'd like you to be her key person. Is that still all right?
Yes, of course. I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Please can you get the settling in visits and documentation sorted for her?
Now, settling in, really
Sure.
tough
See
time
you later. I'll
for a
give her mum a call
new
shortly.
child at the nursery. So let me just adjust the volume. And also documents you can access via our scenarios, here being a key person. Let's call up the mum on the telephone. So again, really good soft skill building practice in terms of parents and other key stakeholders. That's rather loud, isn't it?
Hello.
Hi, Fran. It's Jayla calling from Tiny Trees Early Years and Family Hub. How are you?
Oh, hi. I'm really glad to hear from you. Can Skylar start this week?
I'm just ringing to go through our settling in procedure. It's very important that we get Skylar used to us and that she feels comfortable before starting here properly. Can we arrange some dates for her to come in?
I'm starting a new job, so it's really important that I get Skylar into nursery as soon as possible, as I've got lots of things to get ready before I start. Skylar will be fine. She mixes really easily.
Mum sounds quite
That's great to
consistent.
hear, and I understand your urgency. However, we usually follow the guidance that states not to rush a child into it and that they should be settled in over time. Is there anyone that can help you with childcare while Skylar goes through this settling in period of time?
My mum has helped out a bit, but she can't commit to full-time care as she's no spring chicken anymore. There's no one else. I'm not with Skylar's dad anymore, and he lives in a different city now.
I understand.
Cool. Very short of time. So just this last one, but Fran does not think Skylar needs time to settle in. What are your options in this situation? Agree that it's fine. After all, Fran knows her child's best and you'll soon get to know her. Refuse to let Skylar start until mum agrees to a full settling in process. Encourage Fran to agree to the first settling in on the basis to discuss options further. Then suggest that Fran leaves Skylar with you tomorrow, and if she appears okay, you'll let her start full time. Michael, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the third one, I think. I mean, and I think it's interesting in terms of what some people might have chosen 2 on that one, but I think 3 is the one I would go with.
And Richard, would you say it's quite common for people to be skipping or want to skip over the settling in process? Why do you think that might be?
Yeah, hugely, because I think a lot of it is do we educate the families enough in terms of what the early years service is? So painting out what that is in that full induction to welcome the families in, but to say, actually, we're welcoming you in and your child, but there's a process here. We need to get to know your child as much as possible. We need the information, and it's not just a case of drop and go. And that's it's easier for the parents and the families in some cases to do that. So they're at the nursery now. That's what's happening. It's easy for me to go and not engaging that upset, and I've got things to do as it's articulated here. The agenda of the family can sometimes be what they need to do and not what the child needs, and that isn't them knowing that they're not meeting their children's needs. It's because I've got lots to do. People are very busy. So again, there's got to be some meeting halfway here, is what the scenario is sort of edging towards. But this is common. This was an easy one to add in because this is a reflection of how it is and the battle that schools and nurseries have in terms of just stop. Actually, we need you to stop, and we need this chat. We need this time. We need this relationship and partnership, because this has got to be around what Charlie or what Freya need, and not just about you rushing off to work to that meeting. That's important, but this is equally as important, if not more. So there are lots of compromise and sometimes negotiations that happen, and this is why sometimes getting the relationship right with the family at the start can be tricky. So it's a piece of ongoing work across the sector and education, really.
Perfect. And I can't show the whole scenario, and I've only just dipped my toe in here, but essentially Skylar and Fran come in, and then we do the learning walk around the whole school, discuss settling in process with both mum and student. In terms of the scores at the end of the scenario, we get a full score breakdown, which is very useful to seeing exactly the areas of development required. So some people may want to use this as self-study, see what the students' scores have done, use it in flipped classroom, bring it to front of class, look at those areas of development, give it to the students again for independent study, and then you can show how beneficial your teaching has been in the middle. Students were here, they're now here. They benefited this much. And then in terms of just a bit of a sneak preview on the new environment, I just wanted to show you the new environment, rather cool. So this is in alpha, so there's lots of bugs in it at the moment, but it's a much more extensive school. I don't know if you're able to talk us through it a little bit while you're on here at all, Richard.
Yeah, we spent some significant time redeveloping the space, as we were writing new scenarios. We felt we needed some more help from the space in terms of being able to write different and creative ideas and bring them to life. So we wanted the environment to really reflect early years in particular. And we know it's an early years centre and family hub is a space. We wanted to look like any brilliant early years centre or family hub that you might go into. So with the developers, we were sending photos, this ongoing dialogue I was presenting about earlier. This was really happening over the space. These are the photos. This is the space we think we want. How does this look? Can you recreate that? Developers very willing and managed to get this bang on actually in terms of what we wanted. And we all decided, working on this with Sarah, our business development director, we were just like this. We want this to be real. We feel it's real, and we've got this attachment to it now. But we want this to be what every setting can aspire to look like. Really, a sensory room. You see something wonderful, and lots of groups have them now. And we don't want to be unrealistic. This is big. This is a whole wish list coming to life, and not every setting is like this. However, there'll be bits people recognise, users will recognise aspects of what they've got, which was important to us. So we wanted it to really, the rooms to be relevant for the age and stage, the corridor to be a space as part of the learning environment, the outside to be authentic and a natural space, a community room for families to engage in, and all of that, because these are what your bigger sites, do have aspects of. So for it to be authentic, which was important to us, then it has to look the part, so we can provide an even better learning experience for the users, really.
It's the biggest nursery I've ever seen, and the coolest nursery I've ever seen.
We want our children to go there. We want our children to go there.
We do. We want everyone to go there. And this was the point. This is the aspiration bit, isn't it? And this is what we can try and demonstrate in this learning platform.
I certainly know my son would love the sensory room and also the gardening bit outside in this particular classroom here. Thank you so much for Michael and Richard for partaking in my demonstration there, especially putting you on the spot, Richard. Really appreciate that at the end. So I'll open it up for questions. Anyone want to ask anything? I got one from Jamie. Is the available to current users of the initial 3 scenarios? So unfortunately, no. So the first, if you've used the first 3 scenarios with us or purchased the first 3 scenarios, then there are different packages each time we release new early years content. So, but I can have a chat with you, Jamie, and speak about how to access the package and what we could basically work with you on to make sure you can access some of these early years 2.0 packages essentially. Cool. How do we access the scenarios? What's the cost of the scenarios associated? So Robin, you can access demo versions by messaging me, or I can send you out some demo content for you to try out with some of your students. And in terms of cost, I'll make sure to get someone to drop you a line regarding cost. It depends on multiple different variables in terms of what kind of version you want and how long you want it for, but I'll make sure someone does get in touch with you.
Adam has a hand up. Adam Walker there, James.
Perfect.
Hello. Sorry, I think you can hear me.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool. I guess I got two a bit loaded questions almost about the design process, and I guess this jumps back to what Richard is saying. Sorry, Richard, I feel you're quite overloaded.
That's fine.
No, I was going to say, the first thing is you talk about a sort of co-design process where you implement bits of feedback. Sort of, I was curious if you could maybe like talk about sort of that a bit more about when there are review stages and what sort of parties are brought in there, just out of curiosity, really.
Yeah, so it's quite a long process from idea to final product, and it's real co-production. So we, as the early years brains of it, really have the idea. This fits with the criteria. This is the learning need of the sector. This is what people want and need, and we think this is then what will make a good business decision in terms of what will be popular and what will sell. So it's marrying those together. Once we have a storyboard developed, it's then presented to the developers in our metaverse partnership and the virtual reality developers, and we then go through, and we may have written something too ambitious, and that's then brought down to earth in terms of we can do that, and it's been very can do, I would say. So the initial meeting happens and it's reshaped a bit from that. It goes backwards and forwards. The storyboards change. It could be too long. It might not be detailed enough. And it's very much then that co-production situation. That will happen because any changes will take a week or so to implement. You know, everyone's got other things, and then that is backwards and forwards for a while. Then once the storyboard is complete and signed off from all of that toing and throwing, then what happens is the developers then can create it within the environment, and then we get the first look, and then we then from then go backwards and forwards in terms of actually this isn't how we thought about it. Can that be changed? Can this be tweaked? Things like that. So it happens again once we've had the first look, and then eventually we get to a point of the real thing is signed off as well. We have some testers. We've got our own provision who test it for us, our own educators and colleagues. Michael looks at it with our Sarah, our business director, and they get sign off with the seniors at the developers side of it, and then it happens really. And then once it's had sign off, it happens quite quickly because all of the T's are crossed, you know, I's are dotted, and it can happen. So there is a real co-production, and the ongoing dialogue can happen for several months, you know, from idea right through to, you know, James being able to show you something that's finished like that.
So much, Richard. Well, thank you so much for your question, Adam. Unfortunately, we're at time now, so thank you so much to our co-presenters, Michael and Richard, for taking part, and thank you so much for everyone who's come on to listen and to ask questions. Hope you all have a good day. Thanks.
Enjoy your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you later.